Hello, everyone. I'm Valora Washington. So happy to welcome you here to this episode with us today. I'm from the CAYL Institute, that stands for Community Advocates for Young Learners. And every first Thursday of the month, we bring this webinar series to you in order to have important conversations about issues that affect children, families, and the early childhood education workforce. All of these webinars are free, they're recorded, and they're available on our website. So we welcome you today. The CAYL Institute is guided by 5 basic principles. All the work that we do involves these principles, and these principles are a power source to us as we think about how we can be of service to early childhood educators and to the children and families that we serve. We believe strongly in the right that every child should have a high quality, culturally appropriate, tuition-free early childhood education experience, and that this should be embedded in our public policy, our practice, and in the work that we do with families. Now, this is a vision we've been working on since we were founded in 2003, so it might seem like a moonshot to some people because we've been working for this for a very long time. It is a lofty goal, and it's going to take a monumental effort from a lot of us. But we believe these moonshots for children, for families, and for our workforce are really possible. Yes, they are possible, and they're possible because of all of the historic efforts that people have put into this work over many decades, and also because of all of you and what you do to continue to keep this vision alive. So this represents a very clear point of view, and that's this. We believe that every early childhood education job should be a good job, but we know that the reality is that many of the jobs are not good jobs. And the number one reason people give for this is because of the low compensation. Compensation matters a lot, but there's other reasons as well. So in the past few months, we've been looking at moonshots for children. We've been looking at moonshots for early childhood educators, and we really have said that every child must be included in our vision. No children should be excluded in our vision. Last month, we took a look at all the ways that we can ensure that early childhood jobs are good jobs. And if you agree with that, the adaptive challenge is, what can we do to make this happen? What are the needs we have to address? What can we be doing as educators and advocates to make this happen? So today we want you to write in the chat, write in the chat. Why do you stay in the field of early childhood education? If it's taking us so long to achieve what we think is really very basic vision for children and families and our workforce, but yet we stay and we persist, why do you stay in the field of early childhood education? Tell us. We really want to know. We really want to know your ideas about this. Why do we stay? Why do we stay in this field? We really want you to share your observations in the chat because it really helps us to think together about what must be done. We know that if somebody's going to be put on a pedestal, it should really be teachers. Those are the heroes that we're looking up to. But how can people who teach in our profession be more valued and respected? How can this happen when so many of our early childhood educators are living in poverty and they lack significant professional development opportunities? They lack career opportunities. They face the challenges that we see with our children and families every day. How can we make it a good job? But this isn't a new dilemma. It's a dilemma that's been around for a long time. I was reading recently that when Massachusetts started the first public schools way back in 1647, localities really struggled with the same issue of how to pay teachers. And that was something people were writing about in 1647. Then we can see that in California, the very first state superintendent of schools was writing in the 1800s, and he was lamenting the fact that teachers were so poorly paid. And, one of the things we think about teaching now is so dominated by women, and how has this whole gender inequity played a role in not having the best compensation and other things that would make early childhood jobs great jobs? So we know how important the teaching is. People say the Japanese proverb, better than 1,000 days of diligent study is one day with a great teacher. And we believe that there's so much ancient wisdom that really reveres teachers. Still, we still face asymmetrical challenges. And among those challenges is that our work is not as valued and respected as it should be. And there's so much evidence to that, evidence that we've talked a lot about in our previous webinars, evidence that we talk about in the publications that we offer to you. What happens to early childhood educators has consequences in our society. We know that this is a moonshot that we have to continue to struggle for. We know that this work is work and employment and careers that is just beloved by so many people, including myself. It gives us a sense of personal belonging and we have passion about it. We know we're having a high impact on human development, but still, many people who share the same passion cannot afford to stay in this field, and we lose colleagues because of it. So now is a great time for us to think about advocacy strategies, things we can do to help our field be more respected and valued, to help our field have a good job for everyone. And a good job means that it's a job that gives purpose. We're already very high in this, so our job has a lot of purpose. We know that we serve larger societal goals. A good job is a job that offers growth and recognition and helps people to grow. Sometimes we don't necessarily do a fabulous job with that. A good job offers financial equity. It gives a fair living wage with benefits and compensation appropriate to people's levels of preparation. And a good job offers respect, including appropriate working conditions and tools and resources that encourage and enable staff to do their best job. Why do you stay in this field of early childhood education? Write in the chat. We really want to hear from you. And while you're thinking about that in writing, we want to remind you that this webinar is being recorded. Closed captioning is available. And we also invite you at the end of this 1-hour webinar to click a link that we're going to put in the chat if you want to talk with our panelists today. And that will give you an opportunity to interact with them. And write in the chat throughout your questions and comments because we'll be paying attention to those. After this webinar, you're going to get an email of resources to help you dig deeper into this issue. And so we hope that you will find those resources to be helpful as well. Today, we're going to talk about teacher resilience. We're going to hear from people who chose to enter this field and who have stayed in this field and who are doing excellent work in this field. So there's no overlooking the fact that our field is challenged in very many ways, but yet people stay in it. The people who stay are often models of resilience. They're models trying to achieve these moonshots that we've set forward for children and families and the people who do this work. So we want to talk about solutions. Today, we're going to be inspired by hearing from some of the teaching staff in early childhood education, people who are making a big difference every day in the lives of children. Tell us why they stay in this field, why this moonshot continues to matter for them. And so today we're just delighted to feature for you Erica Phillips, who is the Executive Director of the National Association of Family Child Care. And she'll be able to talk from a family child care perspective about why people stay in this field and how it can be more valued and respected. We also have the privilege of bringing with you a pre-K teacher, Jarrett Rose, who is also working with the Massachusetts Association for the Education of Young Children. And we also have Lucy Dominitz, who is a lead teacher in a child care center. So join us as we hear from these leaders about why they stay in the field and why this moonshot continues to matter for them. And as you're listening, you're going to hear from them about the competence and competencies they bring to this work, the commitment they have for this work, the convictions that make them stay in this work. So we're really excited to hear about how they engage community as they're doing this work, the advocacy that they're engaged in, and how this is contributing to their own professional growth. So let's start with our panel today. We're going to start by hearing from Erica Phillips, National Association of Family Child Care. Erica, thank you so much for joining us today. It's a privilege to see you as usual and to hear from you the family child care perspective on this important topic. Welcome, Erica.
Thank you, Valora. Thank you to the CAYL team for asking those important questions about what brought us to the early childhood education work. And also, I'm so excited to hear from my other amazing panelists. I think that will be an incredibly rich discussion and lens into why we do this work. So I currently have the honor of leading the National Association for Family Child Care, a dynamic, diverse member organization driven by educators themselves to support and leverage a nationwide network of educators, professionals, business owners, and expanding and promoting the power of family child care. So I'm going to briefly start with my personal motivations and then take a step back and talk about the group of educators that I have the honor of leading. So I had a very full circle path to the ECE community, which really started with my childhood. So my parents grew up on the same street in South Philadelphia. And at the center of that block was my Grandma B's house. She cared for all the children who were primarily my cousins because we ran the whole block. And we had a safe, nurturing place to learn and grow, and the adults could make a living knowing that their children were being cared for. But she wasn't supported at all, and so she eventually closed down. My parents moved away from Philly and traveled all over the country in pursuit of better opportunities. We moved to 6 different states. I attended 9 different schools. ECE was always a part of my life. My mother worked in Head Start in different communities. And I was able to be one of the first in my family to go off to college. I majored in engineering. I started a career in business as a consultant, but my spirit was not at peace. I knew my purpose was to create opportunities so that my cousins and those that I grew up and people that looked like could have access to the same pathways in their own community and not having to, in my instance, move all around the country. And I kept going back to my Grandma B's program. I was asking myself, what if her program had been embraced and supported by the other systems in the community? What if not only she was supported in caring and educating, myself and other children in the community, but also could provide a safety net for us as we grew up. And I saw there was also a potential economic development opportunity. I used some of my business skills and organizational skills to help a cousin open up a family child care program. And through that experience, really came to understand the challenges in childcare and how difficult it was for family childcare educators to be able to run programs that enabled them to care for themselves, to care for their families. So for the last 15 years, I've worked in various roles and organizations, all focused on home-based childcare. So while my work in family childcare was limited, and I will be very honest about that, I spend a lot of time listening and hearing directly from our members, from other family child care educators about their motivations for what led them to open and to staying open. It's one of my favorite things. I'm actually in Kansas today and going to be able to go and meet with a group of family child care educators in Kansas. And so I hear a lot of similar themes about what brought people to this work. So first, there are so many rewards that come from working in family childcare, and I'll call out four of them. First, the joy and the awe that comes from working with children, seeing them learn something new, seeing them develop, and that impact that you have on their foundation for lifelong success. The second is the relationships with families, and playing a critical role, not just for the children, but for the families who really develop strong relationships with family childcare programs. The third is this work is often viewed as a calling to make a difference. And that's particularly important in what we hear and also in the data from family childcare educators of color. They're more likely to talk about their work as a commitment to making a difference in the world and helping and supporting children and mothers of color in the face of both systemic racism and injustice. And so there's a real strong commitment and calling that we hear. And the last reward that comes from working in family childcare that I'll call out is just the ability to control your work, to be self-employed. Many people get into family childcare because they have their own children, and this is a way in which they're able to best care for their children, and also support their families and others around them. So there's many different reasons for family childcare. Educators, they do have longer tenures in the field. On average, the providers that we're working with have been in the field for about 10 years. So it is a high tenure in the field. However, we do know that there has been a significant decline in the number of licensed family childcare programs. And that is because with all of these rewards, it does not address the challenges that Dr. Washington started out by talking about, the compensation, the need for greater respect for our work. And so I do think it's important to understand for family child care educators who have remained open, who have stayed in the field, why, what's kept them going. And so when we ask them that, the most commonly cited support for family child care educators who remained open was peer support from their peers, from peer-led organizations. And that really helped them to overcome challenges in really distinct ways and provide the social, emotional, and informational support to continue going on. And so I'll just end with a quote and look forward to continuing the conversation. But from an educator, she said, I think, and she was in an association, I think having the association is so important because this is a job that most of us are either working alone or just working with one person. And you need to have people that are doing what you are doing. We're really coworkers. We're just not all in the same place. We all know what each other is going through. So I will leave it there and look forward to continuing the conversation.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jared Rose. I am a lead preschool teacher, a pre-K teacher in Stoughton, Massachusetts. Um, a little bit about me is my story into the early childhood education community is unfortunately not really all that inspiring. Um, but it is, I think, very practical, and kind of a story of the pandemic. Um, my history is actually I went to school here in Massachusetts for politics and political science. Um, I worked in politics for a number of years. I was volunteering on a bunch of campaigns. Um, I was working in the state legislature. I left there and helped start a real estate company with my family. And I did real estate for a number of years while still being involved in advocacy and a whole range of other things. I even ran for office myself. And the pandemic really kind of changed my trajectory. I think it changed a lot of our trajectories in many ways. And what it led to was my real estate business collapsing, losing office, and needing to kind of find what happened next for me, both professionally and personally. Um, so while I was applying for other jobs, I happened to get a teaching assistant position at a local preschool. Um, I always kind of liked working with kids and but didn't have much experience with it. And thought, well, this would be good for now until I find something else that would work. Like I said, it's not super inspiring. But but I kind of immediately fell in love with it. I loved working with the kids. I loved interacting with the other teachers and realizing that the struggles that we all go through is really profound. And like Erica was saying, whether you're in center-based or family childcare or a religious-based center or what have you, ultimately at the end of the day, you're dealing with very small children, and a lot of your struggles are going to be very similar. Um, so what drew me into the field was that, but what has kept me in the field is really trying to work with the kids that I have to be the best little people that they can be for the short amount of time that I have them, right? I'm a pre-K teacher, so my kids are between 4 and 5. So we're learning our ABCs, we're learning how to zipper coats, we're learning how to dig up worms and doing science experiments and so many other things. And every day you can have a lot of fun and really engage with the kids and really help them kind of transform in many ways. Um, some kids come into my class who are very shy, never really speak, and hopefully they leave and go to kindergarten um, being confident little children. Um, and then I also do a lot of advocacy work um, for the early education community. I'm the chair of the Mass Association for the Education of Young Children's Public Policy Committee. I'm on here in Mass. We have a coalition called the Common Start Coalition, and I'm on their steering committee. And we do a lot of advocacy work in the state on trying to push for better pay, for increased support, for mental health grants, and so many other things that are necessary for both the teachers to happen and for the centers to stay open or the family childcare providers to stay open. And in Mass, we've done a lot of work. I know nationally, NACI has done a lot of work. Um, so I personally come at it from a two-pronged approach. What's happening in the classroom is inspiring, and I try to bring that dedication to outside the classroom as well. So that's me. Now we have Lucy Marr.
Hello, everyone. I'm Lucy Mar, Lucy for short. I am a mother of three. I have twins, a boy and a girl, and I have a 4-year-old sassy girl. I became obsessed with the childhood education when I was a kid. Um, as a young child, I would pretend to play being teacher with my cousins and my dolls. As I got into high school, I got the opportunity to do a technical school, and I did early childhood, and I fell in love with it. I started working as a teacher assistant at the age of 16, and I just loved every minute of it. Went to college for early education, and I moved around quite for a little bit. Um, right now, I'm working in the cadence education, next generation in Franklin, Mass. I am certified in infant, toddler, preschool. I am the teacher of the young preschool classroom right now. Um, for me, early education is just a significant role as a teacher, just, playing and shaping the development of young children. I was drawn into this field because I'm passionate about helping children learn and grow during their formative years. As an educator, I have the opportunity to have a positive impact on their cognitive, social, and emotional development, which has a long-lasting effect on their future for success. Um, for me, being an early educator is, my dream job. A lot of people go to school for business or, for law school, and then they end up doing something else. For me, I've been blessed to continue to do what I love and continue to, be a part of the growth of children and their families too. I feel like every child is part of me, and helping them grow is my biggest success. Um, I stay in the childcare field because I feel like I have a commitment to make a difference in the life of children and their family. I find it rewarding just to see children reach a milestone, whether it's from crawling to walking to their first words. It's just very, very rewarding to me, and it's my commitment to them. Um, and I find it in my teaching to have a lasting influence in the children's life. I have families that are not longer with me because obviously children grow and they move forward. That they still connect with me, we still talk, and I'm still part of their life, even though they're not in my care anymore. I get pictures of them growing and excelling in life. It's just very rewarding for me. I'm currently continuing to take classes. I would like to have a center of my own, hopefully in the years to come. And I just look for ways to challenge myself in the center and outside of the center, with school. Um, and yeah, that's my story. And now we'll move to our group discussion.
Thank you, Lucy Mar. As everybody is joining us back again to have a conversation about a respected and valued workforce, I was just really so inspired by the words I heard. I heard commitment. I heard it's a calling. I heard it was dedication. I heard the impact that you're having on children and families lives. Let me ask you, how do you know you're making a difference on children and families' lives? What can you give me an example of something that's happened that lets you know that you're making a difference?
For me, I would have to say being with the toddlers, the younger toddlers, they barely have words. They barely understand a lot of things. So my group of kids that just moved up to an older classroom, our director just came over and was like, Lucy, I applaud you. Your children know their ABCs, they know their colors, they're able to know their shapes. And just to know that they know all those things and I'm implementing that knowledge with them as they move forward is just rewarding.
Mm-hmm. Because of the age of your children, you really see the fast trajectory about their learning.
Yes.
Yeah, I have similar experience, and also actually this just happened to me the other day. But I have this girl in my class who is um she's in DCF custody, and her foster parent is her grandmother who's trying to adopt her. And sorry if my voice sounds weird. I've been sick all day. Um but uh but I've we've done a lot of work with DCF, with the family, with resources, with trying to reach out to everybody involved over the last couple of months, over and over and over again, of trying to get her all the resources that she could possibly have. And the grandmother kind of like pulled me aside the other day, and she goes, Mr. Rose, I just want to tell you that, like, I don't know where I would be without this school's resources, and what you guys have done. And it feels really nice to have that happen, and also to have it be know that you're having that much of an impact on somebody, and hopefully that trajectory can get changed and really kind of um benefit everybody in the long run.
Mm, that is an inspiring story. What do family childcare staff tell you, Erica, about how they know they're making a difference?
Absolutely. That is such a great question. And just to sort of draw the through line from the individual child learning their ABCs to the family, we hear a lot of stories about the impact. And two, just really quickly, that um, stand out to me. One is a family child care educator in the Bronx. Her name was Miss Dolores, and she cared for a lot of families that were refugees and came and did not understand our systems, which are hard to navigate for any parents, but certainly if you're new to the country.
Mm-hmm.
And they had 3 children. She cared for all 3 of them, and also did after school for the oldest son when he got to school age. And he was really struggling in school, being restrained on multiple times, being sent out of classroom. But Miss Dolores knew he was bright. And so she did 2 things. One, she connected his love with art, and that was something he always loved to do in her program, and really helped to find an outlet for him to channel his creative energy and brilliance. And she literally went with the family to talk to the school counselors and to advocate with the family about what services and supports the little boy needed and what she saw. And so she just was somebody that would not take no for an answer, and she kind of imputed that on to the families. She viewed them as her, a part of her extended family. And so we hear examples like that. We hear times where perhaps a family might have heard something from their pediatrician, and they're trying to figure out what does this mean? And they'll turn to their family child care provider, because that provider is with their child every day and understands, what the child is going through. And so just really helping families navigate so many different resources and stages of child development beyond just what happens in their program. So that's what we see all over.
Yeah, it's so great because there are so many stories. And now, of course, we have so many decades of research that pulled these stories together in quantitative ways to tell us about the lifelong impact that our work has on children. One of the things that people in family childcare, who are lead teachers in community-based programs, or who are pre-K teachers in schools, all talk about is the sense of isolation that they often feel in doing the work. So how do you find support, and how do you build community as you may be that lone pre-K teacher, that lead teacher, that family childcare provider, working mostly not with other adults? So how do you find support and community to sustain yourself in this profession?
Well, I think some of it is building, is if you're in leadership, whether it's in a center-based, a school-based, family childcare, what have you, like building a community amongst your staff is really key and critical, so that they feel supported and that they feel um that they're all part of a team, even if they're only seeing each other occasionally when they're passing in the hallway or
Mhm.
going room to room or what have you. Um, and also, one thing I try to focus on is that, like, you are also, as the teacher, part of your classroom. It has to reflect the kids and their culture and their interests, but it also actually has to reflect you too. Or else you're going to get bored with it. You're going to burn out. And so making sure that you are interested in what's happening, and that it also helps reflect what you're bringing to the table, whether that's your community, whether that's your culture, whether that's your interests, or all of the combination, I think is really key.
Mhm. Mhm.
I agree with Jared. I think being able to have, a part of you be a part of the classroom as well, I think is a big impact too. And just making it your own and being able to, ask for support when you need to. Sometimes as teachers, we try to get everything done and do everything ourselves too, to show that we can't do it. You know what I mean? So being able to say like, I need a break, or I just need a moment to just take a breath or something, I think that helps.
Yeah, the
Right.
self-care part of it is so important. And I know that, we heard earlier, one of you spoke about the need for mental health supports. Jared, I believe, talked about the advocacy you're doing for mental health support. And we've seen some recent studies talking about stress among early childhood teachers is at an all-time high. So how do you do the self-care? What do you do for yourself with that self-care? How do you make that happen for yourself?
Well, we
That's going to be a lot longer than half an hour.
Yeah.
It absolutely is. I mean, we've seen through some of the peer supports an emphasis on self-care, bringing in mental health professionals to talk to talk to educators about their own stress levels, ways that they might be able to mitigate some of the mitigate some of the things that are creating stressors. We certainly try and emphasize the importance of taking time. I mean, family child care educators, since they're their own business owners, often we have to say, make sure you are building in time for vacation. You should be paid for that. That should be a policy. And so hearing it from somebody else, how strategies that they took to build in time for themselves is really important. And so I think just connecting like that peer support piece, because somebody who's in your shoes knows how difficult it is,
Mhm.
connecting the strategies together with a focus on mental health, wellness. I mean, we need more resources around this for all of us in the field.
Yeah, I completely agree with Erica. And, I think it's a two-prong approach for teachers actually in the classroom, right? One is obviously trying to reduce your stress in the moment with a bunch of children yelling around you. So I frequently actually do like yoga and meditation with the kids. I mean, my kids are 4 and 5, so they can follow along a little bit better than the Todds. Um, and we play soothing music and kind of like meditation music throughout the day so that we can kind of have these calm moments and reflective times. And then we also have party times too. It's not just all that. And then for myself, I do a lot of meditation and wellness training. But I will say that there has been a focus on wellness, on mental health, and keeping your staff happy, and that is important. But at the end of the day, none of that makes up for low pay, right? Like that is an inherent stressor. So yes, you need to do all the fun things and all the things that add uh to the teacher's enjoyment in day to days, but if they also can't afford to pay their bills, then none of the rest of it really matters.
Yeah, and this where it comes in where so many people think that, what early childhood educators do is, I mean, aren't you lucky because you just get to play with kids all day? So what do you mean you're stressed? I mean, you're just getting to play with kids all day. For people who don't understand this work, particularly in the policy arena or others, what message would you give them to help them understand the value and respect due to early childhood educators?
I would say that, we're more than just playing with kids, we're teaching them, we're educators too. I do have friends like, oh, you just play with kids all day. I do more than that. I am a nurse. I feed them, I change them, I care for them, I teach them. So it's a lot more than that, than just being you just play with kids all day. I have somebody else's children under my care. That's a big responsibility alone. You know what I mean? So not only do I have to care for these children too, like I have to protect them as well. You know what I mean? So I think it's a lot more than just you're just playing with kids. We have a big role to play with when we are early childhood educators.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, what message would you give to policymakers to better help them understand, the value of what you're doing in terms of children's health and safety, in terms of their social emotional growth, their cognitive development? Um,
So I would give two things. One is that we are the engine that drives, that like supports the economy, right? At the fundamental level, parents cannot go to work that if their children do not have some level of childcare, right? Um, so if the entire industry collapsed, you would see in other industries all over the country start to collapse as well. Um, and two, you're not just teaching children about ABCs. And and what I mean by that is like education is so much more than just pure academics, right? You also need to learn about how to be a person, right? And that is often what we're teaching people. So if you send a child to kindergarten or first grade and they know their alphabet and they know all the sight words and they know all the letter sounds, and that's amazing, but they literally don't know how to put their jacket on, and you live in a cold state, that kid's gonna be cold, you know. Um, and or they don't know how to feed themselves, or they don't, any of these basic skills. So you're teaching them the learning academic things that go into these important steps, but you're also just teaching them how to engage with society, how to not like if you want a toy and somebody else has that toy, how to not like hit that kid over the head with it. Like just the real practical day-to-day things of uh of what goes on so that you can then be a successful member of your elementary school and from there. So it's so much more than that. And also if anyone uses the word daycare to me, I lose my mind. So please take the word daycare out of your lexicon.
I I agree, Jared. We're not caring for days, so that is incredibly that's a good point. For for me, what I would want others who are outside of our field to understand is learning happens in multiple settings and multiple ways for young children, and families need many different options in order to support the work that they're doing. So, for us, we're focused on early learning programs and home-based childcare. However, you need centers. You also need school-based programs. We need faith-based programs, and so one to understand that this work shows up in many different settings is incredibly important, and that learning happens all the time with young children. So even if it's a family child care program who's providing overnight care, we know from research, like having a adult that child is securely attached to is important for them feeling safe to take risks and to think about learning and to be able to continue to develop as we expect children to. And so just every moment that we have with children is an opportunity for their learning and growth. And all of that needs to be respected. We are professionals, right? And we have perspectives about the best way to do the work that we're doing, and that should be respected. And it certainly should be compensated in a way that is commensurate with the value that we provide to families and to communities.
One reason why I asked that question is because during the COVID beginning, people often talked about us as the workforce behind the workforce. That phrase became very prominent. Also, people start thinking about our work as, we were essential workers. So as many other institutions shut down, early childhood education, childcare was expected to continue because it was an essential service. We were the workforce behind the workforce. Is that continuing on as COVID is moving on and people are accustomed? So we saw a lot of investments in the field during the COVID era. Are people willing to normalize those investments, understanding, or is it something that was a passing fancy and now they've moved on?
It kind of seems like it depends on where you live, unfortunately. Like it's very geographically centered. Um, if you look here in Massachusetts, where I live, we are putting in a lot of state money into it, not nearly enough, but there is a lot compared to some of the other states. Um, but if you also look at the federal level, I think 76,000 centers just lost funding from Congress, um, something along those lines. And so it's very geographically centered because a lot of these decisions are made at the local and state level. So who's in office and who's in charge of your local um, of your state legislature, of your governor, and so on, is going to be really dependent on how much funding, how much support there is for your bottom line.
Yeah, the advocacy work is so important because, in our field, it's really challenging when people are with children 8 or more hours a day and then to get engaged with the advocacy work. But at the same time, we find that being part of associations, being part of early childhood communities is a really important part of personal growth, but also advancing our profession. We're going to need to welcome a lot of new people into our field because of the shrinkages that we've had in our workforce, the demand that we're going to have in our workforce. One of the things we heard last month was that many employers are saying that, they're beginning to hire people who might have fewer qualifications, fewer credentials, or less experiences than they might have had in the past because of this worker shortage that we're having in our field. How do we welcome new people into our field? What can we do? So I think that, Lucy, you and me are a little bit different than Erica and Jared in that we both started our whole careers in this field. But what we're seeing is there are probably fewer people like you and me, Lucy, and more people like Erica and Jared who are coming to the field from someplace else. We welcome you because we welcome you to come to something great, which is in early childhood education. But how do we welcome all of these new people and prepare them, many of whom might not have the experiences or educational background to start? How do we do that? How do we welcome all these new people that we need to welcome?
I think having an open mind and being flexible to, being taught and to want to be learned, you know what I mean? I think having the open mind that all children are different. A lot of people think, like I'm coming into this field, like kids are fun, they want to play. No, they cry, they yell, they bite. You know what I mean? We just have 2 new teachers hired in my center, and I am in the leadership program. So by being in the leadership program, I tend to train a lot of the new hires. So, teaching them just the basic, our philosophy, what's expected, but also to know that, it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to need a moment, being flexible. And it's okay to, rely on your co-teacher if you have a co-teacher, being able to rely on your director or supervisor if you don't have a co-teacher. I think those are really good things to welcome them in and, being there to be, I'm here to help you if you need anything.
Mhm.
Yeah, I would, I mean, I think the elephant in the room around this is we have to address the wages and the compensation. It is very difficult to recruit and invite people into a career that is not even keeping up with retail and or fast food. And we know that the value of the work that we're doing far exceeds that. So I think that's one of the things that we have to address. I would also, encourage us to think about that framing of the workforce behind the workforce in terms of trying to recruit people. Like that's not sexy to be in behind, right? We for our own value, have reasons to invest in what we're doing. I get the economic argument, and it is very appealing to bring to other audiences who might be thinking about investing in early care and education. But I think if we're thinking about a recruitment, we need to talk about, in the front, why is this job amazing? And why are we investing in people who are in this work for the inherent value that they're bringing, not just in sort of uplifting the economy. So a couple of things to consider, but it would be great for us to have this job where everybody wants to come, and we have the pathways and the wonderful supports, and I hope we can.
Yeah, I
Absolutely. Go ahead,
completely agree.
Jared. Mhm.
No, I completely agree. Like, we do have a really cool, fun job we do. Like, we hang out with a bunch of kids, and sometimes we get to play with them, and sometimes we get to lose our minds with them. And um, but you do need to be paid well for it, or else you can't recruit people who are looking for a passion, right? Yes, it's a passion for a lot of people, but you also need to be able to pay your bills. So if it's the passion often comes second for most people. Or, they are in a situation where maybe their spouse or their partner makes a lot more money than they do, so they can kind of subsidize it and that type of thing. Um, but we need to fundamentally be paid better, have better benefits. In Massachusetts here, we do have a career pathways grant that pays for you to go take all your classes so that you can become lead teacher and director certified. And then there's also a scholarship that they implemented so you can get your associates, bachelor's, and master's for free, which is what I'm doing to get my master's in early childhood. And um, and also, not everyone's going to love this who's on here who owns a center, but uh, the teachers need the ability to unionize. That's one of the fundamental organizing principles of the United States, and we've seen that over and over again.
So if we
I
take,
also think,
go ahead,
I'm
Lucy.
sorry. I think, being able to get paid great, to stay afloat. I also believe that, teachers should be able to have free childcare too. You know what I mean? As a working mom, I have 3 kids. So having to not only provide for my kids, but also pay for childcare too, it's kind of very stressful, you know. And we get either there are centers who provide a 50% discount if you're an employee. My company right now just started charging 25% off if you're an employee, which still, if you have multiple kids, that's still quite a bit. So like at least 75% of my check goes to childcare. So I think, which is early in the year, I wrote a letter to our CEO implementing that if an employee has been with the company for more than a year or so, an employee should have free childcare. It would also give you a long-term employees. You know what I mean? It will have parents be like, oh, Lucy's been with the company for 10 years. You know what I mean? It would turn more parents to work in the childcare field too. You know what I mean? So I believe that as a teacher, either you are a regular teacher or just childcare teacher, I believe that we should get some sort of free childcare for teachers.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
amazing you're using your voice to speak out for not just yourself personally, but also laying some tracks for what the profession might be able to offer its employees. Good for you.
Right.
I'm going to
And
give you the
Kentucky,
last. Go ahead.
Oh, well, Kentucky just passed this, actually,
Mhm.
free childcare for everybody. But what they didn't do was they didn't change the salaries, which I think was like 11.50 an hour on average in that state, if I remember correctly. So you have free childcare, but you still aren't making a living wage. Kind of need to do both.
Erica, I'm going to give you the last word.
Um, so first of all, thank you so much for having us here. What I will end with, which I think Lucy Mar and Jared are a great example of this, is use your voice. This is a profession worthy of the same respect that we give to those in healthcare or in law or in K through 12 education. The work is hard and it's rewarding because we have an opportunity to shape the future in our programs and our classrooms and for the broader society, really for our country, and bringing about a early care and education system that will support all families and providers and educators having a wage that enables them to thrive. So use your voice throughout all of these. The examples that were shared were really powerful and something that we can all take away.
Yeah, thank all of you for helping people to understand why this is a terrific career and how we can move forward with this. We know teachers who love teaching teach children to love learning. I want to remind all of you that there is going to be in the chat a link that if you want to interact with our panelists, please click that link immediately following this webinar and you'll have an opportunity to meet with our panelists. So 100 years from now, what's going to happen? 100 years from now, it's not going to matter what your bank account was, the kind of house you lived in, the kind of car you drove, but the world can be different because we were important in the lives of children. That is a very profound thought in my perspective. We want to thank all of you, as usual, for joining with us in this webinar series. We want to thank the Eastern Bank Foundation for making it possible in part. Thank you very much. And also, we want to invite each and every one of you to join us in our next webinar series. Next month, we're going to talk about parenting and the Moonshots with parenting. And we're going to hear from parents who are parenting some exceptional children, and they're going to tell us the support that they feel they are or are not getting and that they like. And we're going to hear some very powerful stories from parents who are having some very brave conversations with their children and their families, but also with us as a profession. Thank you all again for joining us again. We hope you'll click on the link, and thank you from me to the entire CAYL Institute family who is really doing such a tremendous job in pulling these webinars together. Thank you, Jared. Thank you, Lucy Mar, and thank you, Erica. Click on the link, and we hope to see you in the chat. Thank you. Good night.